Hi everyone, and welcome to part 2 of Mosaic Coffee Breaks on EOTs, and hope you'll enjoy the rest of our session.
It feels like it's the kind of thing which would be between difficult and impossible to do for firms which are under threat financially, because the timetable would just stretch out too long.
Yes, if it's imminent cash flow problems, such as many perhaps are facing now, my gut feel is it would take 3 to 6 months to actually get something in place. Now, often as not, you've got banks involved. In this situation, or in these situations, most of the money can be left on deferred terms and then simply paid out of future profits from the partnership.
But I can see a lot of benefits to the seller.
Yes.
I'm struggling to see quite so many benefits to the buyers.
I fully agree with you, Mark. And if you've got, perhaps you might have a management buyout team who might not perhaps be prepared to offer what you think might be the full price might be. Your counter to the buyout team is, sorry, you're not offering full price. We're going to sell it to an EOT instead at what we believe is a fair price. Now, the fair price does have to be independently verified, but that shouldn't be that difficult. But you can see the tension between a buyout team and an owner in those situations.
And in that case, what you've then done, hypothetically, is to really upset your buyout team, who then leaving the EOT with a potentially unmanageable and unprofitable firm.
Absolutely. And that's the interesting negotiating tension, isn't it, in terms of price versus future management? No, absolutely.
I could see it might work in some cases. I can't see it being used very widely, I have to say.
That was my initial view when I first started looking at it. But having got stuck into some of the detail and talking to Barry, and I had dinner with a well-known banker in the sector, and she was saying that she's seeing a lot of potential EOT deals being done, and they're keen to actually lend to these arrangements. So it doesn't all have to be on deferred terms, and there's at least one bank that's keen to come in and do it.
I do apologise for missing the beginning of this, and as you know from a previous conversation, Howard, I know nothing about EOTs, right. So I feel I've missed out on the noddy guide to EOTs at the beginning. But is one of the benefits that the employees cease to be employees for national insurance purposes?
No. They continue in exactly the same position. They are employees of the old entity, whatever that entity might be, and they continue to be taxed in the same way. The only benefit they get is the £3,600 per annum tax-free. The Constitution's quite interesting as well. That yes, you've got to have a limited company involved, but you need to have a trustee of the EOT. And what seems to be the norm is the trustee of the EOT is a corporate trustee, and that corporate trustee is itself owned by the trading vehicle. So it's almost eating itself in a circle. Creates all sorts of potential conflicts, but that seems to be the norm. And then on top of that, you have an employee council. The council are on top of, the corporate trustee. And then you've got a separate constitution there. But the rules say you don't actually have to put in place the employee council at the time you create the EOT. You can do that sometime down the line or sometime never.
Doesn't sound terribly impressive in terms of corporate governance, does it?
No.
It doesn't, but as you work through it and think through the corporate governance, you've clearly got to be careful about conflicts of interest. The former owner having control mustn't have control in any way, so shouldn't be a director of the corporate trustee. But as you work it through, so long as you have a clever employee council with voting rights and control over who the trustee is, I think you can get through it, but it needs quite a lot of thinking. Bottom line to me, though, is it provides a huge potential alternative buyer, an alternative market, if you're having some difficult negotiations.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. And yeah, as we've been talking, I can think of a couple of firms I've worked with where you go, oh, actually, this might be a useful vehicle just to help them out of an impasse where the employees want to continue but don't necessarily want to or can't buy out the current owners in a cash way.
Yeah, no, very much so.
Mm.
We're doing quite well, and I think we're probably getting to the end of that, unless anyone's got any other observations.
Well, yeah, I guess my observation is that I think we're going to need to be finding vehicles for, if not unsaleable, then unattractive firms over the next few months as the impact of COVID hits. And I was hoping that this might be one of those escape routes, but I think that the issues you've talked about in terms of regulation and timing mean that's not likely to happen. So I think we've got to keep that search on.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Because I think if we were able to find vehicles that others weren't, then that would obviously give us an edge in the market for those kind of transactions.
But just one thought, we're thinking about this. Do the employees have a say in this employee ownership trust? If the current owners say, we're creating an employee ownership trust, get a valuation, transfer the shares in and say, okay, employees, you now own this.
They don't. That's the great thing about it. It's the trustees of the EOT that have a say. And if you've got a corporate trustee, yeah, and it's a matter of who controls that corporate trustee, who decides what's good for the benefits of the employees. Now, clearly, there's likely to be a conflict of interest if you've got the previous owner there, and they've got to be seen to be careful about it. But it's the independent valuation that's the important thing. If you get an independent valuation, then that provides the protection to the employees.
And I'm thinking also about the regulatory viewpoint here with the SRA, that this looks like a way potentially of an unscrupulous owner dumping the thing into an EOT to avoid runoff cover, redundancies, lease break costs, and all those big costs of doing it, and saying, well, bye, I've done my bit, which you've then left a business that's, possibly, what's the word? Defunct, really. So where does that then leave the trust and the owners? And where does it leave the SRA in terms of regulating businesses to make sure that they're stable?
Presumably, Mark, the SRA would not authorise an ABS that was being set up on this kind of basis.
Well, yeah, maybe. That might be the...
You know the SRA a lot better than I do.
This is a very complicated arrangement, and it's interesting. Howard said the SRA have obviously approved these previously, but a lot for them to get their head round here.
Yes,
you could see this potentially going very wrong.
Yeah.
Oh, and hence you've got to be very careful.
In terms of timescale, could it feasibly be done in a lockdown situation?
Well, the issue is we've got, forget this in any form of restructure. We're seeing, there are some M&A deals going ahead in lockdown. We're doing all the paperwork and all the due diligence and getting everything agreed. The thing I'm finding difficult is completion, because you can't go and take control of the thing. It doesn't exist anymore. So you can prepare all of this, I'm sure. And in a way, this is easier because there's very little due diligence apart from the trustee.
Yes, and I was going to say, there's very little negotiation, because if effectively negotiating with yourself, stroke an independent valuer, you don't have difficult people on the other side who are going to be trying to knock you down all the time. So
Yeah.
that makes it easier to do it in a as Jen says, easier to do it in a lockdown situation because you don't have to see people face to face and negotiate.
Yeah, it's purely a paper exercise.
Mm.
So yeah, so you could do this and come out of lockdown as an EOT.
Yeah. I think we're getting to the end of this session.
See you all soon.
See you all soon. Have a good weekend.
And you, bye.
Bye.
Okay.